This video I want to talk about Asperger and this kind of thing, because I'm self having it. So the thing with obviously it's much in for individual, but for with Asperger is that one common trait is that something you like is gonna be you're very much gonna focusing on that thing you really like. Obviously, you can evolve to like different things more and more, but it's always one or two things that is specific you like more than the other things. Sorry, that you like. And I think if you use that thing in the right way, you can be really great with this kind of thing you like to do, what and so on. The created mind of people with Asperger are very I should not say are very great, because they are very much focusing on the things they like, and they really want to evolve that to the highest level. So obviously, it maybe takes longer time for people with Asperger's to achieve their mission, but in that sense, is also they are better in that sense with it, because if they have more time and they have more. I should not say compassion. That is wrong. What I mean here is that they don't give up if they get is a mistake with this. So if they really like something, you have to understand something. If people with that have Asperger's really like something, they will go through it to the end with it. They will really work with it till they are finished with it, like 100%. They will not quit. But if it's something they really don't like, they're not gonna even try to do it, because they do not think that it's interested in any shape or form. And the reason why I talk about this kind of thing, because I myself have Asperger's. So for example, like this, one of my favorite things to do is to make sculptures. That is something I just like to do. It's just I really like to do sculptures, and I I just work. I don't have any idea in my mind in beforehand. I just see some wood. I make something of the wood, then I'm painting it, and so on. So for me, it's like the process of making something from the start to the end is very interesting for me, and I don't really care about the art and the art style. For me, it's just creating something, and I don't see myself as an artist. Absolutely not. I just like to create things, and it's not for me. This may be gonna sound crazy, but for me, my sculpture is not art. For me, it's just creation. Uh, if I can say so, it's a creation for me, and I just like to show people my creation. And for some people, maybe gonna call it art, but for me, this is not. I don't, because this also for me with my Asperger. For me, art is something very very specific. Um, I don't want to call myself an artist, because I have not yet reached, for me, my personal opinion, reached that level of a artist. Um, and I know when I say this kind of thing, I know that some people get very angry, because they how can I say, they take these kind of things as a kind of reflection on themselves, that I some way uh, look down on them, see the people that make art, see them as lesser, and that is not what I mean. For me, it's like for me, art is for the individual person, but for me as a person, I think everything you give a name to will be put in a box. And so that is also other reason for why I almost never give any name for my sculpture, what kind of thing they are, because I don't want to end it. This is what I mean. It's like I have ended it when I finish the sculpture, but when I give a name to it, it's like an album, and then you have the CD, you have the tracks, and then you put the name on the album, what the album gonna be called, and that is then you finish. And for me, so long as I don't give a name, I think in some way it's more interesting because I can. It's more then I can have some diversity with the sculpture in that way, because I don't, if I just say like this, oh, this is a dragon, oh, this is a sea wolf, that is a toxic psychic flower, and something like that. I think it takes away the mythical. It takes away the power from it in some way. They just turn to be just a sculpture, and I think I see myself in more similarity with my belief with my sculptures, more like a culture than art. I think for me is like my biggest inspiration of why I started making wood sculpture is from the Haida and the Kalinget culture in Canada. Obviously, my sculpture is very different from their sculpture. Obviously, I have my own style and they have their style. But the inspiration is not the art style, but the culture. But the inspiration is more the beliefs. That for me, my sculpture is not art. For me, my sculpture is more something spiritual, kind of things. It's more like this, like a spiritual thing. Um, so this is a reason why I don't give a name to it, because I think if you give a name to it, it's just you wrap it up in the box and then it's finished. So this is why I don't want to call myself an artist, because for me, an artist is a person that make art, and I don't make art. I make something spiritual, and this is for me. I see this way as this, and this is what I mean with, and this is how I think for individual person that have Asperger, everybody is different. They have Aspergers, but for me as a person, as an individual, I think is to explain these kind of things to people. I think is sometimes very complicated because many people they see something in how can I say this? Okay, I'm gonna try to say this as good as possible, but many people see a painting, see a sculpture, and they look at that through a Western eyes, and um, they don't maybe see a different behind it. I don't mean that the all classical painters. This is what I mean. For me, it's really hard to explain in some way, but for me, it's important to cut the line. For me, it's like art is one thing. Uh, Creation of things for me is a different thing. And I don't say that this one is better than the other. It's just a different thing for me. When I'm painting and when I'm working with my wood sculptures, I I don't see myself as an artist. I'm more seeing myself to create something to remember in the future when I look back to it. It's like a picture in wood, um, that have a history to it, and so I think something I really hate. This is this is something I really hate. That with categories, for me, a category is something that is just damage the whole point. And one person always, one time I was very interested in tattoos. I have some tattoos. And I like tattoos still, but I think when that first I was always against that what that person say. Also, I'm not gonna say his name, but I think he always say that categories are stupid in some way. I feel it's stupid. It's a style because tattoos are tattoos. Like no matter if it's new school, black and gray, all this kind of thing, black work is like it's tattoos. And for me, with making sculpture is for me it's just making sculpture. Is that is because I don't want to belong in any category, because I want to have a free mind to make new things in new ways, different time. I don't want to be like, okay, that person he makes, for example, new school style. Okay, you know what I mean. It's like I think that is the end of it. I think really when you don't have any style printed on you, stamped on you, I think you can go much further, because if people don't suspect, if people don't have an idea of what kind of thing you're gonna do, I think the people gonna get more surprised every time. But if they know, okay, this he gonna do that again, I think that thing's gonna take the interest away, and it's just gonna make it just as a wood. I think it's for me. My sculpture have a life. They live in a way, but not in the way how we think. I think it's more is something special, because if you think about it, wood and tree lives. They when they are in nature and around, they are wood. They live. They drink water. They they get leaves. All the things they are a sentience in that sense. So I think that is interesting with making sculptures in wood, because you're making something that have a history to it. Because before the tree is cut down, uh, lots of people maybe have go through see that tree in the wood, or many all of the many trees in the wood, or have seen that tree. And so before you even start to making something of that wood from that tree, that people have seen the tree, and in some way the tree have a history to it long before even you even have that tree in your that wood in your hand. So that is one thing I think is very interesting with making sculptures, because they have a history long before you have it in your hand. For example, like me, when that I make sculptures. Um, so I think this also gives it a life. Is a living thing that your imaginations are put onto it when like these kind of things. So I think is have a two spectrum to it, like a two different history to it. Like the first is the tree in the wood that people see different trees in the wood. The other part of the history is that you make something of that tree in your image. Um, yeah, and obviously, like one more time, well, trees also in the end rotten and goes away. Like people live and die. So that I think tree and people are very similar in that sense of they live and die. So when I say in some way you make something, like you create something, you don't really create because the nature have already created that tree. You just give you give it like a mantle to it to look in a different shape, but it's not you. And yeah, so and this is what I mean with this is the point here with Asperger, is that you really like to talk about the thing you like to do many times. And so you know, in my other videos and even in this video, lots of time I repeat myself, and that is also something with Asperger, that some way you can repeat sometimes the same thing over again. And yeah, so I think it's, in a way, I think it's very much I don't okay that it's more easier, I think, for people with Asperger to find fun things to do on their own than find things to with friends, because is obviously, as I said before, people with Asperger are individual to person, so I think it's like, for me, I always have something in mind what I want to do. So this is what I mean with making, for example, making sculptures. I think because you always they never, it's something that takes long time are interesting because you have a history to it, because you can create something. And like for me, why I'm preferring making sculpture over just writing on paper is because it takes much longer time to make something with a sculpture in wood. Obviously, this also have about how what kind of different wood, how hard the wood is, and so on. But uh, I think it's like something that takes longer time are more interesting than things that go very quickly. For me, anyways. So, and obviously, I don't know, but for some way it's, I don't know why wood sculpture I was started to get so interested of it. Obviously, because of that with Heide and Kalingit, but why I still continue making sculpture, I think it's because of the interest, and it's obviously something more. It's I don't know. It, when I really think about it, I don't really know. It's just, maybe that is the answer. I don't know. It's just I just like to do it. Maybe that is the thing here, is that I just like to create things, and I just like to see the end result of the thing I create. And maybe that is the answer for it. And it's just interesting. Obviously, that is also very interesting, very fun to hear and see that some people like my sculpture. Obviously, that is very nice. I think obviously I don't want to say the simple thing like, oh, it's just fun and that is that. I think for me, I want to find a better answer for my own question. And I maybe like it's like, maybe I maybe have to be satisfied with this answer. Maybe it's like that. Is that I always have always liked history, um, and obviously with history you have the word art. You have art in history, and maybe that this is the one on the thing here is that when you see, for example, for me, when I see it's like a Hittite temple, an Egyptian temple, something like that, you see sculptures, and maybe this is the thing here is that why I like to have my sculpture in my apartment is because I feel maybe that's gonna sound silly in in a way, but I feel something that I are have a have a connection in a different way with their culture, with the history in the world, because like them, like others, and like me, um, I have my sculptures in my house. They have their sculptures in their house or their temples. Obviously, is it yeah, and that is where how I see similarities, like how with them, with the Hittites and with the Greeks and the Egyptians and the Romans and the Chinese. Obviously, everybody have differences, but the similarities here is that long time ago they make their art uh, in clay, in wood, in stone, in glass or other different material, in bronze, in iron, um, uh, and that is the same for me. Like, what makes it? It's not the difference. What is the difference between me making sculptures from a ancient Greek making a bronze sculpture? It's like it's not different. It's like this is what I see. The similarity is that we are similar because we're making something with our hands. No matter what kind of material, but we are similar. Like, even if we have different beliefs, we live in a different time zones, in different eras in histories. Um, I think um, like in some way you can think back, um, when you're making something with your hands, how for a different person, how that person makes something like 600 years ago, like how for example, and obviously sometimes I think about that. I remember when I make a sculpture, I think about a, a Greek, and in the ancient time, the classical Greeks, and how that person make that art style. Like, how do that person think when he makes, example, that Gorgon head, or for example, the famous, or Etruscan make the famous not chimera. Yeah, chimera, make the chimera in iron, or something like that. I think we have so many similarities with people in the ancient time as we are here today, because, and I think making something you speak without speaking, um, um, to the world, in a way. Um, yeah, and so I think you I think the more you speak with your hands, and you speak less with your mouth, um, and I think that is the thing here, is that just to create something, because other people in history have create things with a brush, with a mace, um, with a knife. People have created something in human history, And I think that is the thing here, is that um, I think it's interesting because when you go to, for example, a museum, and I see different sculptures in the museums and paintings and other artifacts, and then you come home to your apartment and you can see your sculptures, and it's I don't know. I don't know. It's interesting. It's very, very, very interesting because you have something that they don't have in a way in a museum, but they have something that you don't have, and you have something special. I think that is the thing here. When you make something that is your own, it's more special than buying something that some other person have done. I think that is, for me, is that you have something special for yourself. You don't have other people do not need to understand why they are special. They are special for you. They are a special thing, and they give you back memories when you have made them. The memory of them. So that is the thing I really like with this. It's like you have something that no other person have in that sense of that sculpture. They don't have that specific sculpture that you have made. You have something that no other person have because they have not made the way that you make it. Because when you make it, it's right from your mind and your hands to create these kind of things. And I think this is the reason why I always prefer art from your head than copying some other person's art. For me, I always have been, I want to have my own style and my own way. I don't want to be put in a box, because for me, I don't want to swim with other persons. I'm swimming in my own pool, and I think that is the thing here, is that the conclusion to the whole video is like this, is that I just want to make something that is from my own mind and my own ideas. What other people do, they do it. I don't need to follow that. If they like that art style, they do it that way. But I'm making my own style. And I always going to prefer that over people do copy something that somebody else have already have done. That is just my mindset and how I think. And yeah, okay, that is everything I really want to say in this video.